So I have this reading assignment, and I'm just gonna have to start over with this one. So we have a concise guide to macroeconomics, what managers, executives, and students need to know by David A. Moss. So we have okay. So the three basic pillars of macroeconomics are output, money, and expectations. So output, money, and expectation. Hopefully, it could be read in just a few sittings. Understanding the macroeconomy. The notion of national output lies at the heart of macroeconomics. The total amount of goods and services that a country produces constitutes its ultimate budget constraint. A country can use more output than it produces only if it borrows a difference from foreigners. Large volumes of output, not large quantities of money, are what make nations prosperous. Measuring national output. The most widely accepted measure of national output is gross domestic product, GDP. In order to understand what GDP is, it's first necessary to figure out how it's measured. The central challenge in measuring national output, or GDP, is to avoid counting the same output more than once. It might seem obvious that total output should simply equal the value of all the goods and services produced in an economy. Every pound of steel, every tractor, every bushel of grain, every loaf of bread, every meal sold at a restaurant, every piece of paper, every architectural blueprint, every building constructed, and so forth. But this isn't quite right because counting every good and service actually ends up counting the same output again and again at multiple stages of production. The essential logic of the expenditure method is that if we add up all expenditures on final goods and services, then that sum must exactly equal the total value of national output produced, since every piece of output must eventually be purchased in one way or another. As a result, the standard definition of GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country over a given year. So, consumption, investment, government spending, exports and imports. Consumption, investment, government spending, exports and imports. So GDP is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus exports minus imports. Income is the amount paid to factors of production, labor, and capital for their services, typically in the form of wages, salaries, interest, dividends, rent, and royalties. Since income is just payment for the production of output, it makes sense that total income should ultimately equal total output. After all of the proceeds of production ultimately have to end up somewhere, including in your pocket and mine. Sometimes one country may wish to exchange its output for that of another. The US may wish to exchange commercial aircraft for Japanese automobiles. If the value of the US aircraft exactly equal the value of the Japanese automobiles, then both countries' trade accounts would be in balance. Countries running trade surpluses today expect to get back additional output from their trading partners in the future. This transfer across time is ensured through international lending and borrowing. When a country exports more than it imports, it inevitably lends an equivalent amount of funds abroad, which allows the foreigners to purchase its surplus production. Conversely, when a country imports more than it exports, it must borrow from foreigners to finance the difference. By borrowing, it is promising to pay back the difference, typically with interest at some point in the future. Current transactions such as exports and imports are current accounts. Financial transactions, including sales of stocks, bonds to foreigners, are recorded in the financial account, which was formerly called the capital account. Deficits in the current account are necessarily accompanied by capital inflows on the financial account, whereas surpluses on the current account are accompanied by capital outflows. As a result, the current account and the financial account are perfect opposites, with a deficit in one necessarily accompanied by a surplus of the same amount in the other. Current account deficits should not necessarily be interpreted in a negative light since they can indicate either weakness or strength, depending on the context. In some cases, current account deficits imply that a country is living beyond its means, increasing its consumption to an unsustainable level. But current account deficits can also arise when a country is borrowing from abroad in order to raise its level of domestic investment. The question for deficit countries refers whether they're using additional output well, whereas for surplus countries, it is whether they can expect a good return in the future or they're giving to others today.